Hello everyone, and welcome to a new Dominion series. This time we will be playing Dominion 6 as Middle-Age Pyrene. I've started on turn 3 because nothing exciting happened on turn 1 or 2, and we have a lot of battles to watch, so let's watch them. Oh, this isn't a battle. This is just me pinging a province with Amazons in it to see what was going on here. And it's a little scary. They have quite a few Jade Maidens. This is my real proper expansion army. And not to get too bogged down right at the start, but I think Middle-Age Pyrene really struggles with expansion. I think in general, just Dominion 6 made expansion a lot harder. But one strategy I found that is somewhat effective are recruiting the cavemen and using them as basically like cheap killers, line holders, because they're quite strong. Yeah, not exactly clean. Unfortunately, every single one of Pyrenee's units costs 12 gold at a minimum, so this is kind of an expensive capture, especially losing 6 of these guys. One crossbowman isn't so big a deal. And here you can see I have decided to take an Awake Expander, one of the new pretenders in Dominion 6, the Black Dragon, lovingly titled after a very infamous NPC. I can get more into the discussion of my choices on him later, but let's just watch him fry these guys. And there was a random +1 luck event that happened in the Weld. So this is our starting position. We are surrounded by forests to begin with, which is sort of a blessing and a curse. A blessing in that Pyrene has commanders that they can recruit off their capital that can only be recruited in forests or in forts. So hypothetically, if I set up a lab in these various forests, I could continuously produce that mage, which is a really good one. Otherwise, I think my starting position here in terms of indies I have to deal with is actually quite generous. A lot of people who are playing were complaining that they were dealing with barbarians or heavy cavalry that were surrounding their cap circle or their cap. So I think I've actually gotten off pretty comfortably. Amazonians are of course dangerous, as are barbarians, but I don't really mind them existing in these provinces because we have all of these easy places we could take, including here too, as long as they don't have any of the large vine guys. And these provinces maybe aren't that bad, depending if the amount of heavy cavalry that end up being in this province. As for my scripting, it's nothing too convoluted. The Pyrene default commander has poor leadership, well, relatively. They can only hold 2 squads, so I can't really fit these cave people and also the starting spearmen and crossbowmen, and so I've just kind of like awkwardly shoved them into the same squad. It's not very efficient, but I don't really have much of a choice. I can't have these guys sitting at morale 10. That would just be pretty apocalyptic. They already have terrible morale, they have terrible defense skill, so they're just very incentivized to rout. The best thing about them is not just that they have a spear that hits pretty hard, but also that they have a lot of easy damaging range projectiles. And from your capital, it's quite trivial to spam them out because they cost almost no resources or recruitment points. Even the most expensive caveman is cheap on resources. This is a new feature in Dominion 6. If you have a pretender awake, you immediately find all of the thrones that are on the map. So I've already located all the thrones that are here on the overworld. And if we go underground, I can see there are a couple thrones down there too. So something to consider as far as expansion is concerned. I'm mostly interested in just trying to take 2 provinces right now. I really want my investment of having a Awake Pretender to pay off quickly. Something I've learned with this nation is that you need to have very good early expansion because all of your stuff is very expensive. So if you don't have the gold to afford it, you're really going to be in a bad ways. Yes, something interesting I found is here in the Weld, I'm actually recruiting 3 light infantry, which I normally never do, and I kind of hate the idea of making independent troops. But this army is so weak and lacking in number that I'm sort of desperate to do anything to beat this province over here that I'll even recruit random independents to try to beat them all. And I think my scripting over here could be better. I have him set to fire, but in retrospect, it probably would have been better to tell him to attack the rearmost enemies first. So that way he would spend the lowest amount of time getting pelted by archers as possible. Otherwise, in my capital, I'm not doing too much. I'm sending out my first Sorginia, or cat shape-shifting lady, to site search, as I want to immediately start site searching all these provinces. Given that they're forests, they should have more magic sites. And in general, there should be just a higher proliferation of magic sites in general, because Dominion 6 introduces a new path of magic called Glamour. So in order to not mess up the sort of pie chart that is the percentages of what magic sites exist in which province, Illwinter kind of just increased them all flatly. Unfortunately, her paths are actually kind of bad for site searching. Fire 1 is not really going to show up anything. Air, it would be best if she was Air 3. Unfortunately, that's just not the way it is. And blood is useless. There really are no blood magic sites in the game. Of course, there are. They're just quite rare. So, really, we're just site searching Air 2, but that's fine because this nation really lives or dies on air magic being the principal thing that they're going to produce. Indeed, let me talk about Pyrene a little bit, or at least my thought process as it is right now regarding these units. My initial thoughts are all of these troops over here that are not the sacred are all terrible. In fact, they may be just the worst troops in Dominion 6 ever, at least for the Middle Age. They're all overcosted, they're all understated, they're all very directly comparable to units that already exist. Like this one, for example, is almost exactly the same as one of the coastal troops that East gets access to, except this guy is more expensive. And that's pretty much the only distinction. That is like +1 strength, I think. But otherwise, just like an overpriced version. Pretty much all their troops are just kind of like Marignons, but sort of vaguely like middle-age Ulms, so they have a little strength, they have a little less magic resistance, but they're kind of like slightly armored human troops. Unfortunately, they're not armored enough, only having 12 protection here on the generic footmen, and the spearmen also only having 12 protection. But sadly, they all cost 12 gold. So even the cavemen option is also 12 gold, because they have extra morale, they have extra strength, and they have these 4 traits: fire resistance, cold resistance, mountain survival, and dark vision. Unfortunately, as you can probably tell from my start, there are no caves near me. So dark vision is immediately worthless and it attacks. Cold resistance is pretty much useless most of the time. Having 5 fire resistance is great. It's almost excellent, but unfortunately it's just not really enough. Fire magic, especially fire evocations, are all much stronger in this game than they were in the previous game. So having any fire resistance is great. And mountain survival doesn't really matter. I don't really have any highlands around me. I've got this one down here in the high peaks, but otherwise I'm going to have to go really far out to find any. But in regards to the Emerald Knight, very expensive, but not bad at all. This is the most middle-aged Ulm-like unit, given that they have huge protection. But on top of that, they actually have really good stats, 12 attack skill, and also 12 defense skill. And because of the new change, how riders and mounts are separated in Dominion 6, they actually produce a number of attacks per square, up to 4, so slightly cutting above. They have the same, sort of Pyrene package of paying for these 4 kind of crappy traits, but it's your sacred unit, and for that, it's okay. It would be better if they were size 6, because that would enable the mount to take a lot of the damage instead of the Emerald Knight. Like sort of long weapons can actually target him because his mount isn't big enough to absorb the attack, which is determined based on the size or the length of the weapon, I think. But the Knight's actually, or the Mouflon, I should say, it's not bad. It's got a lot of HP, which is convenient. Yeah, I mean, it's a good sacred. The trouble is just, unlike the most direct comparison, I think, which is middle-aged Marignon, a lot of this nation is very comparable to middle-aged Marignon. These guys are not recruit anywhere. They can only be made in your capital, so you're always going to be lacking for them, and so a sort of sacred hell-bless strategy is very hard to pull off. And furthermore, they're not just crazy expensive on gold, they're also really resource and really recruitment point intensive. That's sort of my feeling on all the troops. They do have, some niche use, although I wish this was 2 points higher. Obviously, having crossbows in the Middle Age is great. Unfortunately, they're very expensive for shitty crossbows. And that just leaves the commanders. These first 2 are nothing. They're just junk, just like generic commanders. And your mages, you can pay the most money anyone's ever paid for a level 1 priest in Dominions, and maybe he'll be Blood 1. Probably not, though. You can pay a crazy amount of gold for a Blood 1 mage that is maybe doing a little more, but usually not doing anything unless in a Sabbath. And then again, you're paying 230 gold for like a Sabbath slave or something. This guy really sucks. But then you have this woman, and she is okay. Not a good commander, actually not a great mage, almost a great mage. If she was like Air 3 or maybe Fire 2 or really just anything +1, then she would be a fantastic mage. Because she can turn into a cat, but there's something very powerful about the cat form in that it is stealthy. So when she's in cat form, you can sneak into people's provinces, you can sort of elf people, and of course you can sneak away from armies if you are stealthy, which is all great. And in human form, she can fly, which is of course fantastic. Huge area that you can attack from. You can drop air elementals, you could drop fire elementals, or really anything. The world's your oyster. You're also storm immune. Not that that matters. This nation can't actually cast storm natively, but it's cool. And she has better dark vision for some reason. Unfortunately, the Sorginia is 260 gold and not sacred. So just having one right now, I'm spending 17 gold on her. And, who knows how long this game goes on for, but that adds up. That's a lot of gold that you're going to be spending on pretty much your one and only good mage that does not exclusively come from your capital. This is just your scout, and this is just a caveman commander. I don't know why you'd ever make him. I guess because he's cheaper. And then this is your Emerald Knight commander. Again, he's fine. Got good stats. He could hold a really powerful bless, but just way too expensive for what you're getting. And then you have the Acker Belts, which is a very interesting mage. But again, even though he's got great paths, and can get even better paths, and stealthy, and also an excellent Blood Searcher, he costs 450 gold. Outrageously expensive, and is slow to recruit. And because all your troops are so, like, just by default, really expensive, it's really quite crippling to pay for these two commanders, which are the only two you really want. You don't really want any of the other ones. They kind of all just suck. Any gold that you're not spending on your Sacred, or the Sorghini, or the Acker Belts, or maybe like on a Crossbowman, or one of these Great Sword guys in some situations, is kind of wasted. Not really. Of course you need line holders, but it just doesn't feel very good to recruit them. However, as I said earlier, I did find that cave people are pretty helpful for this early game expansion, as you will soon see. These are the mercenaries available this turn. I'm of course not paying for either of them, but let me go over the pretenders that are in this game, and how I'm sort of afraid or not of certain players. Norisuke is the pretender of Pangea, and definitely this guy is the greatest Dominions player in Japan, which I don't know how many people in Japan actually play Dominions, but he's definitely the best, bar none. And Pangea is a fantastic nation. Even with the changes from Dominions 5 to Dominion 6, I think they're still fantastic. I don't really know anything about the Agartha player at all, but of course Middle-Age Agartha is extremely terrifying because they have statues, and statues are crushingly strong magical units. I think this is the first time this Ulm player's ever playing Dominions in general, ever, so not really expecting much, but even still, you know, these guys have got 23 protection, so you have to respect that. And of course, that's me. The Nabah player is like an old blind master who definitely has played like 2,000 hours of every single Dominions. Very scary. And also, Nabah is a super duper powerful nation. So definitely afraid of them to begin with. Shinuyama is kind of a shitty nation to begin with, and I don't think they actually got any better in Dominion 6. Actually, I think they got substantially worse. Because of the emphasis on troops and the de-emphasis on mages and magic, and Shinuyama has dreadful troops. Better than Pyrene, though. But also, the person playing Shinuyama is just not super experienced, so not terribly worried. Middle-aged Kalem is a fine, maybe like below average nation, but the person playing them is stupid, crazy good. Maybe the best Dominions player I ever played with, so very frightening. And Zabalba, I know nothing about the person playing them. I'm also showing you their titles here in case you're curious about the pretender scales. But I think Zabalba is just kind of like a meh nation, so not really scared about that. And I don't know anything about Jotunheim, but anyone who plays Jotunheim is cool. And Nidavellir is a interesting nation, a new one that came in Dominion 6. I think they're very silly, very funny. I know the person playing them is pretty okay, so we'll have to see how they do on the field. Something new that Dominion 6 introduced is that you can see the bless of anyone who you have seen in battle, which is a nice quality of life change. And the reason I took this pretender specifically is because in my testing I found that Middle-Aged Pyrene, because these troops are so expensive, they can't expand, and their starting expansion army is terrible. They have these useless crossbowmen and these spearmen, which suck. They're like bad units. They pay a lot for these 4 traits that just don't do jack in the expansion era of the game. So what can we do if we can't really ride with these units because they're just too expensive, if not on gold, which maybe you're not so limited by, but resources, which you are really limited by. Even the default shitter footman costs 19 resources. Thus, I found making these cavemen is a better choice. But if you really want good expansion, you need an Awake Expander on Middle Age Pyrene. You cannot, like, function with pure scales or some sort of, like, dormant play. I mean, of course, you can try these things and they can work, and I'm not saying, like, this is the end-all, be-all strategy. This is definitely not, like, the optimal pretender for expansion for Pyrene. I picked it because black dragons are cool, not because it's smart or the best choice. But even within that, I think, you know, Jaratheon here is doing some cool stuff. Spitting out acid damage is very unique. So, you know, you're not really going to find acid resistance ever, except on him, I guess. And, you know, he could shape change into a human if I need him to, like, hold items or something. And if not, you know, big earth is great. That's something I don't really have. I have moderate earth. Yeah, I can get up to earth 2 reliably, which is okay. You know, if this was the late age, that would be good. But I wanted big earth. I wanted to be able to cast Earth Blood Deepwell, Earthquake, you know, quite nice with a flying unit casting it. And yeah, I mean, he's just cool, so why not? And here we are now on turn 4. I researched Alteration 2, and there were a couple battles where my dragon just kind of killed everything, which is not too unexpected. However, weekend. Yeah, so unfortunately I got obliterated. This province had a few too many heavy infantry, more than I thought it would have. 18 is quite a number, and I just wasn't able to punch through it. Although the spearmen did good, I think the cave people being on fire instead of just stab with their spears probably lost it for me. On the plus side, my pretender did escape successfully, but I did lose a lot of units on the retreat. So that was a very costly, failed expansion already on turn 4. On the plus side, I revealed a lot of very easy to take provinces with my pretender. So I felt, okay, well, I'm not really in a rush to take any of these. Let's go back and fill out my cap circle, because worst case scenario, I can just fly my pretender back over here and pick off any one of these. Maybe not this one. This one actually has heavy cavalry, so it's a little scary. I got pretty lucky here with recruiting this priest, because he actually rolled Blood 1, which is cool. Otherwise, I'm just picking up the units here that I had, even the stupid light infantry that I made, and I'm going to try again. I'm merging both of my sort of starting expansion armies, and I'm going to send them back and hopefully win. As for what I'm producing in my capital, it's not much. I really don't have the resources to make anything of note, so I'm just producing these guys because out of all the units I can make, he's got a 15 protection suit of armor. Granted, he's just going to, like, pass out on the field of battle with 8 encumbrance, but hopefully, you know, he can do something. 18 damage with a slashing weapon isn't terrible. Also, to just speak of the geography, I actually, I mentioned earlier that these forests are a curse. A blessing, of course, for my mages, but a curse in terms of movement and blood hunting. There's not going to be, well, there just are not a great amount of population in these sort of forest provinces, and even though they are very slowly increasing, never mind, neither of them are increasing. even though I have growth too. The population is just not an optimal level for doing blood hunting, and none of these will be. They're all pretty bad for blood hunting, I will swiftly discover. And furthermore, they're also just really nasty for walking through my own territory. Like, the movement cost, the strategic movement cost, is quite high to flee from Pyrene, so if I want to reinforce somewhere with troops from Pyrene, it's going to be pretty expensive to do so. On the plus side, there is this nice river that kind of runs along here, and the way the bridges are set up is actually quite convenient for me. The only way really onto my side of the river is through these two provinces, which are both my capital or adjacent to it. So I think it would actually be very easy to defend, apart from these ones over here. In regards to research, I am now going for blood magic, up to blood magic 3. In terms of what I was interested in getting out of blood magic, I wanted to get the blood fecundity, because I thought it would be the best idea for producing more gold if I could raise the growth on my castles. Also, they changed it now in Dominion 6, where scales scale from realistically -2 to +2 in the sort of character creation, nation, pretender creation stage. So you can't get to 3s without your pretender influencing the scales. In this case, Jaratheon is letting me get to Turmoil 3. And I think also Pyrene has an innate, like, +1 to Turmoil, so I can get to Turmoil 3 that way too, for some extra design points. But what I was getting at is, if you can exceed 3, scales now go up to 4 and 5, or -4 and -5. You actually do a little terraforming, so if growth 4, my provinces will slowly turn into forests. Which I thought, oh, that's neat. I can now recruit more of my black goats through those forest provinces. That seems useful, if I could make them. Keep in mind, this is the first game of Dominion 6 I'm playing. I did not realize the pain of expense it would cost me, and also the pain that having Turmoil 3 would inflict upon me. And here we are on turn 5, and oh, what is this? Already I've bumped? This is nothing, it's just me killing the Lion Tribe. However, I encountered the starting army of Pangea, or not the starting army, but a expansion force. And I got to see his bless. Reinvigoration, Blood Surge, Mountain Survival. It's nothing particularly scary. And also, this army only has 2 White Centaurs, or this one must be crippled. Limp, I see. Yeah, so I mean, nothing really to see here. He pretty effortlessly kills the Indies. Does actually lose a White Centaur. That's pretty terrible. Now, can I defeat Pangea with my army that vaguely resembles a army of independence? I think if I did not have my Prophet, no chance I have of beating that army. I think those 2 White Centaurs completely destroy me. But because I have my Prophet here, we win, thankfully, at pretty cheap cost. You know, not 100 gold, 120, but for him, much worse. I did lose a couple units to retreating shenanigans, though. I didn't want to follow up on this with Pangea, and it did kind of like dumpster the remnants of my army and also send some of them fleeing backwards to fight him. And these provinces both have heavy cavalry, so I just said, okay, let's stop fighting. You know, we're not going to continue this anymore. I'm sure you don't want to, so I'm done. And he was like, that's fine. Here to the south, the southeast, we found Nidavanger, which is not great. If he pushes across these bridges, I'm going to be in a really bad spot, because I really want to take these to deny him, I guess, or whoever else is down here, the ability from getting above these bridges and thus claiming all these provinces. However, I can't really do that because I don't know what the hell is over here, and I can't take this. My army over here just got thrashed. I'm not sending my pretender to fight, 18 of these Jade Maidens. He'd probably kill them, but he would also probably get like crippled or something, get some horrible affliction. Even with affliction resistance from all this earth magic, I don't really want to mess with it, so I'm just sort of taking the easy little highlands, mountains, river province down here, also in my cap circle. And I'm just continuing to make these Pyrenean bishops because I need someone to research, and over the course of a long grindy game, because they're sacred, they're not that terribly expensive. They're still terribly expensive and terrible mages for the cost, but I needed to get some research out. After deciding to put 20 points in blood magic, I come to the conclusion that that doesn't really matter, and I instead focus my efforts on evocation, because lightning bolt, it's a good spell. Also, I could hypothetically cast these fire spells like Flare, or even Sulfur Haze, because I do have fire magic as well. Otherwise, Nidavellir picked their prophet finally. I don't know why. I guess he really just wanted a Seath Barender to be his prophet. I didn't find any magic sites, of course, as will be a reoccurring trend. And here we are on turn 6, the start of fall of year 0. Pangea has picked a new prophet. Much like Nidavellir, they wanted a higher mage, in this case a Pandemoniac, to be their prophet, so that's who it is. And I'll show this because it's the one and only battle. It's just Drathion kind of like killing everyone. Now, because I've researched Alteration, he can cast Stone Skin, so his protection is sort of crazy. It's pretty unreasonable for anyone to realistically hurt him with 29 protection. This is also something new. In Dominion 6, these sort of tribe provinces are a lot more scary because the Nature 1 mage, who has access to every single spell in the game, as all indies do, they can reanimate the various random shrubbery and shit that's on the map and actually turn them against you as units. And this guy is kind of annoying. Like, they've got a lot of hit points, these like bushes and stuff. I don't think it matters for this battle, but definitely it's a little scary. Getting some payment from having luck 2. Getting 36 unrest over here in the high peak, so immediately proving that to be a bad choice. And I've now found Calum over here, which is just terrible, because if you recall what I said earlier, I am now bordering everyone of who, as far as I'm aware, the best players in the lobby, barring Nabah. So I'm already sort of thinking, like, I'm kind of dead. I arranged a deal with Nidavellir eventually to have a non-aggression pact, and I believe I did the same with Pangea, citing that I am the only nation in the game that is running heat scales apart from them. So happy to be friends with Pangea. The worst thing that could happen is all my provinces turn into green flags in one turn. Unfortunately, Calum as a player doesn't really respect non-aggression pacts, so I don't really bother engaging in one with them because there's no point. I recruited a commander here, I guess to build a fort, because hey, it's turn 6, it's almost turn 7. But what you may have realized is, even though I have actually taken a province every single turn, and here it's turn 6, next turn, it'll be turn 7, we should start a palisade, because they take 5 months now and cost 1,000 gold. I don't actually make very much money. Partially, that's because of my scales. Turmoil is not helping me on income, nor is heat. But it's also because I spent a lot of design points on growth that could have gone into reducing turmoil or increasing productivity, and growth is just not a good scale anymore in Dominion 6. It provides a extraordinarily meager amount of income with the way population now scales, how this calculates the amount of gold that you generate per corn is extremely low. If you have 20 provinces and you have growth 3, and in every single one of them you're making like 40 gold per turn extra, it's such a incredibly low amount that it's almost never worth picking growth anymore, unless you're doing like some super greedy scales build and you already have, you know, productivity 2, order 2, your temperature's neutral. So it's like, okay, well, why not? Might as well take growth 2. I already have all the scales I care about. Anyway, as far as my movements go, I'm going to try to take this province because I want to start site searching with water mages, and that's what green Amazons give me. Otherwise, I'm just continuing to site search with the cat people. And this is what I'm recruiting in my capital because my resources are actually somewhat decent. I tried a pretender where I started the game with 2 hammers or even 3 hammers in terms of productivity, to get 3 Emerald Knights on turn 1, but it's not enough. They're not that good a sacred to warrant like going so hard on productivity and producing them right out of the gate. Giving them 5 extra natural protection is disproportionately good though, because there are 2 units here that are having their protection increased, which is nice. And I'm making one of the Acro belts because I need to start site searching in nature and in earth magic. Hopefully we can get +1 nature and +1 earth. Getting 4 blood, it's okay, but it's not really any good at this point in the game, so hopefully that doesn't happen. Alright, a lot of things happening here in the middle of fall. We finished Evocation 1. We found 2 magic sites, both of these providing, I believe, 1 fire gem. And then we had this huge mass combined arms battle here against the Amazons, including with my pretender. Yeah, and thankfully we do prevail, although at somewhat great cost, about 200 gold lost, in addition to another 7 troops who died on the retreat. Pyrenees units, even though they have extra morale, they really like retreating. And unfortunately, it is yet again a forest province, and so it is not really worth a lot of gold. And I've already run into Nidavanger down here at Province 82, and Calum is now aggressively moving to my south, taking the nice, easy province over here at Knobville. So already, I am being completely encircled in expansion, and over here, both of these two are kind of threatening to meet and take these provinces, cutting them off from me. I think it is only through very aggressive diplomacy that I basically petition these players to say like, oh, you know, I'll take these 2 forests, you guys can have these ones if you're Pan, and Nid can have these 2 down here. I think that's the way it worked out. And then Calum was like, well, you can have Knobville, and I'll go over here and take 147 eventually. On my schedule, effectively. You know, like, I'll take it when I want to, when I feel like it. So I'm returning to my capital with one of my champions to pick up some of the troops over here. And also I'm going to finish my Black Goat this turn, so he'll be able to start recruiting. And I'm now building a palisade here on this province, which is eating up a crazy amount of my money. I mean, really, you saw everything I was producing. It's a very small amount. But I'm just not making much gold, only 800. Even though it's turn 7, and I have 2, 4, 6, 8 provinces. Not actually looking good. Hopefully this turn I should take 2 if my Pretender can take this one. I changed his script to make it a little more sensible, I think. Also, I found a lodestone on one of the Amazons in that province, so very happy to have more magic resistance. Might not matter. And then these guys I'm just sending after the Lion Tribe. I figure because they have such good armor and, you know, relatively high defense skill, including high protection on the shield, they probably won't die. And also my profits here, just kind of hoping desperately that I can take this. I mean, I sort of have to take this. If if Nidhogger takes it, I might just be like dead in the water. And in regards to research, we're just working on evocation too, again. Otherwise, site searching over here. Yeah, 2 fire gems in those provinces. These are the mercenaries for the turn. Again, really just can't afford them. Way, way, way beyond my price range. Maybe if I could go back in time, I would cut the Acker belts and maybe like cut these guys and instead focus on just getting out like a ton of cavemen to have like a really quick and dirty army that I could send out and like skip recruiting a commander for a turn and just, I don't know, go take this province or one of these over here, because it's nice to have out this guy and have him out site searching earlier rather than later, because of course there are magic sites here. We want to find those magic sites. Every turn we don't, we're just leaving gems on the table. But realistically, the air gems are more important than the nature gems because they're just kind of hard to make with 4 recruitment points and also 450 gold. It's expensive. Alright, a lot of things happened this turn. That being nothing here. These battles went very safely, didn't lose anything, so very happy to see that. And then, once again, Luck 2 is paying dividends. I've lost a province to RNG, and also receiving terrible tax rates from this province that I just took with my Pretender. Kind of randomly killing one of Nidhogger's scouts, which I guess is nice. Not really thinking about it too much. This province had really high unrest, so the income it was providing me wasn't very good. This one is like the first province I've taken in a while that had a high population, so getting the income slashed in half isn't great. I got my first goat, and he is a +1 Earth Mage. Take note of that, because that's important. This is, I believe, the one and only Earth Mage I get maybe in the whole game, or at least for a long-ass time. So really, really, really can't lose him. Not, of course, that I knew that at the time, but they're expensive, and this is my only way into Earth 2. Can't make Earth shoes without them, etc. So this is what I'm producing in my capital, and you may think, what the hell is this? You're not spending your gold on anything. I am spending a considerable amount of it on province defense, because now I'm afraid, after this, like, bullshit event totally screwed me over, I'm sort of like worried that I'm going to lose my provinces, so I'm dumping 11 province defense within them to maybe like ward away some bad events from happening. Of course, this province over here is really quite difficult to take, so I just say fuck it and turn around. Let the Vikings have it. That's fine. We have to reclaim one of our provinces again. Still haven't filled out the cap circle. Really don't have a lot. I've got these Emerald Knights, which are being led by a very lousy commander, but hopefully with an extra 5 natural protection, they'll be able to defeat these light infantry. The only concern is the bishop himself getting plinked in the head by a random javelin or something, but there doesn't appear to be any archers or crossbowmen in this province, so I'm not like super worried about it. And I'm just sending my Pretender over here because it's a farmland. I'm like crazy desperate for money. Yeah. Again, these are the mercenaries this turn. Calum, once again, showing that he is definitely the threat and the scariest player because the most consistent in recruiting mercenaries. And I can't even begin to imagine the idea of recruiting mercenaries because I really don't have any money. Um, already spending a lot just on 3 mages alone, spending over 60 gold. So pretty crushing on that alone. Like half of my expenditures are on my non-sacred mages alone. Not talking about all my mages. And here we are at the beginning of winter, and we have found a magic site. Playful Winds. And thankfully we pretty easily bested those heavy cavalry, mostly by just sniping their commanders in the backline. This province is very crucial, as it is an air gem producing province. It is our one and only one that we have found so far. Furthermore, we have found another player. We found Shinuyama. This is my first neighbor, who I'm not really worried about, because Shinuyama is just not a very scary nation, especially not like early on. And anyway, he appears to be site searching with his Bakemono sorcerer, so just content to kind of leave that alone and take this province with my pretender. Otherwise, down here, which is where I actually sent the Emerald Knights all the way here across the river, as part of the power, I guess you could say, of them, is I can actually move beyond the forests with them. So, you know, it's actually not super hard to get out to these outlying provinces. And I'm just attacking here in this region. Nothing really too exciting, just scripting them to bless and then go for it. Otherwise, just site searching around, waiting for my castle to be done. This is what I'm building here. Again, spending a considerable amount on province defense, but I just want to remind you I lost a province to random event, so I just really don't want that to happen again. So I made sure all my provinces have 11 province defense, and I don't have to worry about it again. And otherwise, just continuing to scout around. These two have already enclosed me off on the east, so really the only viable avenue left is the north, and down here in the south, which might just be getting cut off. This is pretty wild, building like a random isolated temple. Would not recommend doing this. It doesn't really do anything for you, I think. I don't know. Maybe there's some like off-cap unit that Nidavellir can recruit. Okay, after reviewing it, yes, it's true, Nidavellir can recruit actually a tremendous number of units off their capital, and they should be doing that all the time, which is why there are Bear Clan warriors here. But still, this is just kind of dangerous to have a random temple out here. I mean, he knows I'm over here. He moved to scout through these provinces. I guess he just doesn't consider it very threatening, or he considers our NAP3 to be very, you know, steady, and considers me a steadfast ally, which I suppose is a positive thing. But this is just kind of like, you know, this is in my fucking cap circle. Like, what is this, like, ridiculous aggression already, you know, just right out of the gate? Like, I'm going to aggressively build a temple right in front of you, you know? It's hateful. And we are still producing no research, because all my commanders are being spent. Well, actually, this guy should be researching. But I built another useless priest, as you saw last turn, and unfortunately he did not randomly get Blood 1, so I got, unfortunately, punished on the 50-50 and just recruited a very overpriced mage. And here we are. We found a sun bridge, which is cool. More fire gems. This battle's kind of interesting. It's the first time I'm using my sacreds. So you can see when they're blessed, their protection becomes 23 across the body, which is great. It's the same protection as Black Plate All Mights, which I'm very happy about. And also the Mouflon's protection is also quite good. 27 on the head. It's really impressive. But against these guys who only hit for like 16 or 13. Yeah, I mean, you can see they pretty much can't get hurt by the indies. So I was quite happy with taking natural protection on them. Now, unfortunately, in this battle, my pretender did take a limp as an affliction. So even with affliction resistance, even with stone skin, even being within, or I guess he's outside his dominion here. Well, there you go. That's why it happened. Being surrounded by heavy infantry. No way. How does he take the limp? What? What? Eh? Is this like a faulty battle report or something? Okay, just to satiate my own curiosity, I went back in time and I didn't have it. So I don't know. I guess Dominions is just like trolling me. Again, I'm getting my Luck 2 payout. This is kind of a cool event. We got 15 defense in our capital, so Luck 2 actually genuinely doing something for us. And this is the province we found. It's another fire gem producing site, which is cool. We are now making 5 fire gems, but really suffering here on the air gems, even after searching all these forests, which are supposedly high in magic sites. However, we did find this magic site, which gives us an extra 10 income. It's nice. You know, we need every scrap of income we can possibly find. And over here, we found glamour gems, which are reprehensible. No one wants those. And now we can see Shinuyama's scales, which are, if you were playing Dominions 5, we would point and laugh, because this is like, oh my god, you took Def 3. Like, are you role-playing as early age Yomi or something with your turmoil scales too? And Drain? I don't understand. Like, this is just a bad set of scales. However, Death doesn't really matter that much, nor does Growth, to be honest. They're kind of just like fun flavor scales, more so than having a large mechanical impact anymore. So don't let that, scare you too much. Of course, if you are looking to dump scales for points, it does make a billion times more sense to just go to Misfortune 2 versus Death 3, which is going to reduce your income for sure, whereas Luck is probably not going to do that. And Pinji is over here capturing this province. Indeed, he's here with his prophet. I can't really stop him from taking Province 144. I just have to hope that he doesn't do it. And we see Nidavanger is over here with a big army, which is kind of scary. Not really sure what all that stuff is doing there. He did recruit 2 mercenary companies. Doing that right outside of my capital, where he has built a temple, really does read to me that he wants to attack me. And you know what? Granted, fair to him. If he attacked me right now, I'm dead. Like, I've got one sort of ace, which is my pretender, but I have a laughably small army, a laughably weak army. I've got some powerful sacreds, but not nearly enough. I've got these mages which are overcosted and can't do very much because they're paying so much for this blood magic that is just pointless at this point in time. So I think if he really committed, especially because he can recruit troops anywhere, good troops anywhere, I would just die. I would definitely just keel over and perish if he seriously tried to attack me. Especially because my palisade is being built on the other side of the country from him. So really just have to hope he respects the NAP3. And thankfully, I think this player is pretty reliable. He will pretty much always tell you when he's breaking it, so I'm relatively confident that I'll be okay. And here we are at the end of year 1, and already Calum has claimed a throne, as expected, as Calum is the threat, for sure. And it's not just any throne, it's the throne of life. So, wonderful. It's going to, over the course of a long, grindy game, deliver a tremendous amount of gold, we did find a magic site, and it is an air gem producing site, so very happy to see that. Otherwise, my battles all went pretty well. All right, we're just going back in time that, you had a brief, you must have had like a brief glimpse of foresight with your innate astral paths, because obviously we're on turn 11, we're not on turn 12. So here's my pretender instead, flying back across the river to attack all these lion tribe. Now, if he got a limp from these attacks, that would be more reasonable. But anyway, having a limp, yeah, it kind of sucks to lose one attack and one defense. Losing combat speed doesn't. I don't think that matters. Getting -4 to map move is pretty terrible, but he is flying, so it's fine. I don't really... given all the terrible afflictions that could have been received, like chest wound, I'm fairly happy with a mere limp. Anyway, my sacred cavalry are continuing to expand. This time into wolf tribe, deer tribe. You can see they're pretty good. Yeah, they hole up quite nicely and really took very little damage, except that guy. But overall, not pretty meager. Only lost half of one. This is a new mechanic in Dominion 6 where if a unit loses their rider, or vice versa, their mount, you get a discount on recruiting the unit in your keep, or your capital, I should say, if it is the rider who is dead. I think if the mount just dies, then the unit just becomes a... and this is me just like finishing off the barbarians over here. And here we are in the deserts outside Pyrene. Having the cavalry make direct contact with the barbarians doesn't feel like that was the correct decision, but only one got an affliction, which was a limp, so I'm somewhat happy with that, and I'm finally going to retake this province, and I'm going to go down here and capture this one, which has only got some light stuff, and I'm going to fly back over here with my pretender and go after these, and then try to snag the stuff over here. I'm just pinging this province with a caveman to see like exactly how many cave or heavy cavalry are here in this province. And I'm continuing to recruit what I perceive of as the best units are from my capital. And I'm spending a lot of gold on a lab because this palisade's about to finish over here in Jankeep. So that'll be my first palisade, and it should finish on turn 12. And so here we are on turn 12. Calum, of course, has taken the Throne of Life, which we never knew that before. And I found my second magic site, the Sparkling Field, so very happy to find that. I mean, you saw, I took all these provinces with all of these battles, which I was quite happy to see. There is a lot of heavy cavalry here in Rasenna, so little trepidatious about walking in there with ordinary troops without my pretender. I think my pretender could cheese it just by like killing these mounted cavalry in the back. All units have gotten younger with the Throne of Life. Actually, kind of vaguely relevant, because all of my units, once they perceive the Master Emerald and they give their life over to protecting it from the forces of chaos, they lose their lifespan. This is especially bad on these mages when they random fire, because they're actually very close to max age. So, you know, I'm happy to see that units are getting younger. That's good for me. To do an Acker Belt review, I've got another one that's Blood 4. I've got this one, which we saw earlier, that's my Earth 2 guy, so I'm just having him search around with Earth 2 and Nature 2. Not found anything just of yet, unfortunately. But yeah, this is how Pyrene stands at turn 12. We have a pretty sizable border with Calum, 3 provinces, but we do have a fort over here and a lab, and soon to be a temple. This is what we're recruiting. It's 1 cat woman. It's the best we can really do. We do have a huge border that we're going to have with Shinuyama. I had to negotiate with this player for the throne province here, because I think he wanted to take these 2, but I said, hey, you know, I'll take them and you can instead get this throne. I'll just let you take it, because I was really in the like big province brain mode. I just wanted to take as many provinces as possible because I'd been cut off here, I'd been cut off here. I was like, well, you know, I can undercut Shinuyama and I can take these 2 provinces, or maybe I can take these ones down here. And lo and behold, Nidavellir not only had the goal to slap down a temple in this province, but he was also building a palisade there. So I have a palisade in my cap circle's circle, and he's still got those mercenaries. So I don't think he's going to attack me, but this is kind of like a really awful choke point, especially given how many provinces it touches, including a throne. And there's like this annoying mountain range that also like splits my country here south of the river in 2, which is just very irritating. Otherwise, I'm sending scouts out to find more of the world. I've discovered with my starting scout that Jotunheim is over here, and Nabha is over here. Given that Calum is over here, these 3 are likely to come to blows, already bordering each other. And Nidavellir basically owns this entire section of the map, and Pangaea owns this area over here, which is actually not that much. I've spoken with him, even though it's not revealed on the map, but Ulm is in this little space, so likely to take these provinces, which you may have noticed. That means that Pyrene, little old middle-aged Pyrene, is directly in the center of the world. Not just the country, but like the capital itself is pretty much smack dab directly in the absolute center of the globe, which is really, I think, an absolutely dreadful place to be. Sure, I had a lot of provinces I could take. Indeed, I actually have the most provinces. This is a little spoiler. I have the most provinces of any player in the game at this point in time. I have 20 provinces here on turn 12. I'm curious what you viewers may think in terms of who do you think actually has more provinces than I do. I believe this map was scaled to be 15 provinces per player, and it's got like multiple caves. You know, it's like multiple small caves or something. But of course, I don't really get to interact with that game, with the cave game at all, because there's no cave entrances anywhere. None in my area. But apart from the failed expansion over here in the Weld on turn 3, I think my expansion went about as well as it realistically could have gone. I took a lot of provinces. I'm, you know, not happy with my income. I think it's actually extremely bad. I have a lot of like sub 50 gold provinces. And I'm already burning a huge hole in my pocket with just a small handful of mages. And it's only gonna get worse as I recruit more and more of them in a desperate bid to up my research, which is still really bad. I only have Alteration 2, and this is exclusively for Stone Skin on my Pretender. I could also cast Personal Mist Form as well, but I don't want to use my very rare, very precious cat mages just yet. I want to just have them site search and research. But that said, expansion isn't over for me just because it's turn 12. I still have a couple more indie provinces I can take, including over here. So hopefully we can snag a little more income and maybe see about actually claiming this province, which I think these two players just said, like, yeah, go ahead. I can, you can take it. Still not able to recruit any one of these Jade Sorceresses, mostly because it's just too expensive and I'm already spending a lot on infrastructure. So I do want to eventually start producing those Amazonians, but it's just not going to happen currently. Otherwise, that is where we stand at the end of turn 12. I have no non-aggression pact with Shinuyama. I fully expect to invade them, mostly because by my reckoning, it looks like they're in a incredibly shitty position, like hyper failed state tier. Only 4 provinces, presumably this one as well, and maybe this one down here if the river froze over, and maybe they're underwater. I don't think so though. But seems like completely failed expansion, so not really worried about them. Always worried about Kalem. Always worried about Pangea. Very much worried about Nidavellir. So pretty much all my neighbors are quite scary, but I have no formal non-aggression pact with my neighbors to the west. I do with both my neighbors to the east. And politically, that's exactly where I stand. Oh, and before I forget, here are the list of thrones. Anyway, thanks for watching.